Welcome to She Became Visible. I did a very quick intro today because I have the most, and I just have to tell you, I have the most amazing women as co-hosts today. And I want to give the Brit Vengers a little heads up that this little women squad that we got going here, we might be giving you a run for your money because it's about time we get a gang of women's voices out there in the world. And I think I might have found my gang. So be prepared. And the greatest thing is we are going to be recapping April General Conference 2023 that was just held last weekend. And I think it's really important. One of the things that I've noticed, and I'm not kidding you, the recaps that I've listened to between Nemo the Mormon and RFM, and I think it's Analyzing Mormonism. I can't remember her name. She's amazing. They are so detail oriented. I'm like, dang, are you guys like stenographers here? Are you taking shorthand? I mean, you got these quotes and the whole bit. And one of my co-hosts, Martine, her and I both agreed that, look, we're just generally watching. When they say General Conference, we are generally watching, picking up things. But the thing that I think is the greatest thing about women and getting our reflection is I believe that we internalize these messages. It isn't just the literal narrative that's being spoken. It is the internal message that I believe women have the capacity and one of the gifts to feel what these messages are and then relate what our feelings were. And I think there's just a sixth sense, an intuitiveness about these about some of these talks that I think we can see through the narrative. And so that's what we're going to be doing today. And just kind of talking about what we loved, what maybe made us kind of cringe a little bit. And so let me stop talking and bring on my amazing gifts. First of all, I have Lila Tueller there.
Hello.
Hey, and then all the way from Scotland, we have Jane. I love you.
I love you too. It's so great to be here.
And I have to tell you, Jane, someday I'm getting over there. I just watched a YouTube on Scotland. I've been watching a couple of them, how Scotland came to be in Edinburgh. And my great grandmother was from Edinburgh. So I'm like, okay, I got to go there. So
you must.
Yeah, we're going to be hanging. And then my favorite, Martine. And the reason I love Martine so much, Martine Smith, I'm so happy that you're here, is Martine and I are the same age, almost exactly the same age. And it's very rare to hear the voice of women over 60. There's a lot of 40 and 50-year-olds out there deconstructing and talking about it. But Martine and I have so many things in common. I mean, we got married the same year. We had our babies the same year. And we both had the same prophets and general authorities. And we sat in meetings and listened to Ezra Taft Benson live. We listened to Spencer W. Kimball live. We listened to Gordon B. Hinckley live. And we've experienced all that. And so I have such a fondness for Martine. And so I'm so glad she could be with us here today.
I'm happy to be here.
So thank you all. And we're all from Lila and Martine are both in Utah. Jane is in Scotland and I'm in Arizona. So look what modern technology can do, right? So first of all, ladies, I don't think it would be fair for me not to introduce you by your appropriate name. So Sister Lila, what's your middle initial?
Well, I didn't have one.
Oh, of course not.
I use my maiden name as my middle initial, so it's R.
So Sister Lila R. Tueller, and yes. A general authority's daughter. So she's right up there. I'm sorry, ladies. The rest of us are just, nothing.
Oh,
okay, and Martine, what's your middle initial?
D.
Okay, so it's Sister Martine D. Smith, who is a genetically her husband is related to the Smiths. And so there is a pedigree there. You also, both of you two ladies could be on their ladder somewhere. I don't know why you've been passed over. And then Jane, what is your middle initial?
It's E for Elizabeth. So, and I have zero Mormon pedigree whatsoever. I'm a convert, so I'm not even getting into the conference center. I'll like be tucked into an overflow room possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd be standing there with the and who again are you related to? That would be a could you stand outside? Could you just move? Yeah, that would be what that is. So Sister Jane E. Christi. Christi,
yes.
yeah. So there you go. And I am also a convert, so I had a middle name. So yes, my middle name is Kathleen. My mother tried to pull some Irish out of our heritage and there was a song, I'll meet you again, Kathleen, some kind of a song about a dead person. But anyway,
I'll take you home again, Kathleen.
Yes, there she goes.
At New Year, Scotland gets merry, and those are the songs that we sing every year, longing for home when we're still in the living room, and singing about women who died that we have no idea who they are. Yes.
I love it. I love that you know that song. And then, of course, my first name, Martine speaking French. And so the only time my name is pronounced when I went to Starbucks was in France. And I gave them my name and they knew exactly how to write, although they did spell it with 2 E's because that's the female.
That's the feminine form.
Yeah, the feminine form. So there you go.
But
so,
I found somebody in my genealogy that I know. He was a cousin of my dad's, and he's a male, and his name is, in all the records, is René, spelled with 2 E's. And I'm so confused, but anyway.
Oh, see, there you go. That's so crazy. Well, ladies, I want to make the promise that this isn't going to be a John Dehlin 8-hour podcast, but I am enjoying you guys so much. We might just sit and talk grocery recipes or something if we have to, because I'm loving this. This is great. But let's get to topic right away. I wanted to just start out with just each of you, if you could give what you think the general theme of conference was this weekend, and then generally give a just kind of a feeling of how conference went for you. So let's start out with Lila. Just tell us about what you think the theme was, and then generally what your feeling was after consuming 9 hours.
Okay. I have to admit, I did not watch the session on Saturday night, the night session.
You didn't miss anything.
I did not. And I had to work all day Sunday, so I had to watch afterwards, and got home from work and fell asleep in the first session that I just was out. So then I had to rewatch it. Anyway, so I'm struggling here. I would say there were a few themes, but I think one of them that kind of jumped out was that we're supposed to be non-contentious. Yeah. And we're supposed to be, peacemakers. I felt like, I know that was President Nelson's big message, but I felt like it kind of bled over into some of the other talks as well. There was the ministering talk by Gong. There was the don't let discouragement overwhelm us that Cook had, and just a lot of that kind of, brotherly love sort of stuff that I picked up on.
Yeah, I agree. I think
with any of that, really.
Yeah, I agree. So Jane, what was your feeling?
So this conference, I think I was really seeking some things. So I'm still an engaged member of the church. There are things that I am looking to happen at conference that I know it's not really going to feed me. The theme of conference, I would say, was a real brand spanking new focus on Palm Sunday. We are suddenly, from out of nowhere, aligning ourselves with the liturgical calendar that members of the church just don't really, we don't use it. Now from nowhere, we are doubling down on Palm Sunday because we are Christians, and so we're aligning ourselves with this Christianity. And amazingly, even though it's Palm Sunday, there was still not as much Jesus worship as there was Russell M. Nelson worship. So that was really interesting. And yeah, the other big takeaway for me was the other big messaging that was coming through was about contention. This, I mean, maybe we can talk about it later on if we're going to maybe dive a little bit into Russell M. Nelson's talk. I think was the big one of conference for me. So when are the women going to speak? When am I going to hear from women? We're all super aware of that. And then what happens when a woman does speak? Is she going to break our hearts? So we had a good talk from Sister Camille, the Relief Society General Presidency. I was hoping that what would happen is that as a result of all of the SEC scandal, the financial stuff, I thought we might hear a lot about humanitarian aid. And here is the Relief Society president, who you could really do a lot here. And it didn't really, she talked about relief, she talked about care, but it didn't really do anything. But yeah, for me, my conference experience is I'm looking for you to talk about abuse. I know that you're not going to say this, but I feel like church members need to have this spelled out. Do not kill your family members. I mean, it's awful, right? That this is how explicit.
We just received a revelation. God has instructed you to not kill your family. Go on.
Right. So I'm looking for, specifically looking for abuse messaging. This is something that we focus a lot on 21st Century Saints. We will talk around abuse, and interestingly, contention gets picked up as being part of that abuse conversation. So contention would be if people have to walk on eggshells around you, if you are freezing people out in conversations. Oh my goodness. I mean, you're not calling it abuse. Could you please call it abuse? You're calling it contention. So this was really interesting. My main conference problem thing was the sustaining of church officers.
Yeah. So
for the first time, I didn't sustain the prophet, and I have always sustained the prophet. I was devastated. So it wasn't for me, it wasn't so much about the fact that I voted opposed. My emotions really came up because I love you and I can't do this right now. And I was heartbroken. So I needed him to heal. I needed him to be a prophet and change my mind. So yeah, the outpouring of support and love I had after sharing that experience. I've had church members be so kind and so wonderful about it, who are friends. But the ex-Mormon community, specifically the post-Mormon community, have just reached out in love because they get it. They know how hard it is. It has been incredible. So that was my big conference, was a very emotional journey for me.
Oh, that's interesting. So if I'm understanding what you're saying is the still members maybe didn't hear that message of contention, but the ex-Mormons hear it because we experience it, and they're reaching out and saying kind things.
What I did was I had shared a video. I mean, I was so not sure if I should do this or not, but on the Sunday I shared my experience of raising my hand to oppose, and I was really emotional. I was devastated. So yeah, after that experience, when I'm expecting a lot of pushback, I'm expecting members to, is this the thing that's going to, because I manage to have friendships, and our podcast speaks to an audience right across the spectrum, from engaged leadership to ex-Mormons. We're in a pretty unique space. And and when I shared it, oh my goodness, the outpouring of support from them for what I was going through. So conference, my experience has been, yeah, you're all saying all of this thing, but there's this little mini existential thing that's happening with me for my heart, and you're all there. You're post-Mormons, and that is incredible to me that you are ministering in this Christ-like way, not judging, not saying, yeah, I told you so. But yeah, the sustaining of the church officers was something that I knew was going to be tough. And it was an incredible
Wow.
experience.
Oh, that's
Can I ask a
amazing.
question of you, Jane?
Yeah.
Were you attending then? You were attending in a building with other members?
No,
No.
this is the crazy thing about it is I'm at home and I'm going to record this just for my journey. I was keeping it pretty personal, because in a couple of weeks' time it's going to be my ward conference. And I I don't know what I'm going to do. The tough thing is with the sustaining of church officers, I really get that in this space that we're in, how can someone stay engaged when my child is suicidal because of the teachings of what you're affiliating with? How can you stay engaged when there is what someone's perceiving as dishonesty? I realize that for me to have the privilege of sustaining, and it's nothing yet has been a deal breaker, or has been enough for me to have to raise my hand. So I know it can be really triggering. It can be really tough. So I was really thinking long and hard about how is this where I am? Oh my goodness, I'm there. And should I wait and just see what happens during conference? Should I abstain? We also saw we had someone in the audience who had recorded themselves voting opposed, which was really
red jacket.
Yeah,
bright
really,
orange
really
jacket. That
great.
was so beautiful.
Yeah. Apparently someone in the choir had also voted opposed.
Really?
So yeah, people are doing it, and it's what I'm loving is there is a conversation and acceptance, and people talking about bravery for doing it. I'm in my bedroom. No one saw. And that was part of the reason why I thought, okay, I'm going to share this. I'm going to let you all see. And also, I guess part of it is, if I can ever be accused of, you're just trying to, cause problems, can't you just simmer down? Part of me wants people to know that this isn't easy. This is, this is really hard stuff. I am heartbroken. So yeah, it's been that's been my conference story, regardless of what is being said from the pulpit.
Right. And that's amazing. That's beautiful. Martine, what did you experience?
A lot of frustration, but that's been going on for years. Although I usually watch all of conference, including Saturday. So the themes, yesterday morning, for example, Sunday morning, two apostles and the president of the church spoke about contention. So that was definitely, avoiding contention was definitely a theme. There was also, I thought, a lot of, what do they call it now? I'm not even sure I recorded it, but in a number of talks about, accessing the power of Jesus Christ. Through your covenants, you access the power of Jesus Christ. And I wrote a note to myself somewhere. I wish they would speak in language that I can understand. Because I know about electrical power. I know how to turn it on. But accessing the power of Jesus Christ to me is just extremely nebulous. And they never get down to, telling you what you can expect.
Right.
And how well, how to do it is, going to the temple, covenant path, obviously.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't make notes every time I heard it, but I heard it a whole lot.
Yes.
That's really something that runs through. Yeah, as a former Catholic, Palm Sunday was funny. It got to be funny. I mean, I am certain that the term Palm Sunday was repeated more in the last 2 days than the last 100 years in Japan.
Yeah.
I will do that search. Lila, I will. I will.
I know you will. I know you will.
Yeah.
She will give us the results of that search. She will find out how many times it's been said in the
during the so when I was chorister for 10 years and ward music chair, there are not a lot of Easter hymns in the hymn book. And I would always choose one for Palm Sunday. We really don't have one for Palm Sunday, but I would always, and I had one counselor in the bishopric who was very sensitive. And the first time I did it, he came over and he said, Martine, you notice that it's Palm Sunday. And I mean, he's a Kimball, born and raised in the church. But it was something to him. It meant something to him. He said, yes, it's Palm Sunday. And we never celebrate it, but you managed to sneak a hymn in there to remind people that Easter is next week, but this week's is Palm Sunday.
Yeah.
And one thing I did like, let's see, I have 2 sets of notes, is that Gary Stevenson was the first, Quorum of the 12, was the first speaker out of the gate Saturday. And he actually gave credit to our Christian cousins for observing Palm Sunday. And I gave him kudos for that.
Yeah, I that was one of the first things that I noticed too, was that we have a general authority that is instructing us to maybe look at some other religions and see what they do. Maybe we could do that. And that was actually like what he said. He said something like, just look to other religions and take some of those fun things that they do, and maybe you can start incorporating some of those fun things in your life, like Christmas, like look at all the things we do for Christmas, but look at all those fun things those other Christians do, and wouldn't that be fun? I mean, we could start doing like palm things, and what a great idea in 2023, and.
Could I ask you guys a question about that? So what happens in your area, in your country, with Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday? Are they celebrated? Because here culturally, the schools all do things. There are holidays for it. People would tend to have, I mean, it's not in the scale of Christmas, but would tend to have an Easter meal together. Is it not celebrated really there? Okay.
Not secularly. I mean, Easter would be Easter bunnies and because you have to separate church and state. But even the world, I mean, you're not going to go into Hobby Lobby and find palms, to take home. You're going to find Easter bunny stuff or resurrection, especially in Hobby Lobby. You're going to find Christian crosses and stuff like that. But no, I don't, unless you're Catholic or some of the other more fundamental religions, I don't think secularly you're going to see any kind of Palm Sunday. But in that, maybe part of the country too, Jane, I want maybe in the Bible Belt, would you find more? You were down in New Orleans, I don't know if there was more.
I was just in Richmond. I was just in Virginia a couple of weeks ago, and it just because our son lives there. But every time I go, I'm just amazed at the number of churches. How close together they are, just various denominations. But Jane, in the church, people do have an Easter dinner. I mean, you go get a ham, right?
Yeah, well,
traditional.
For Easter,
Yeah.
but nothing for Passover,
Not for
you know,
all.
or any
Yeah.
of that. Yeah.
well, it's definitely more it's celebrated in a secular way here. So the restaurants are full on a Sunday, or people are having a meal together. It would be maybe chicken or lamb, but also, I mean, I tell me if this is true. You guys don't have chocolate Easter eggs, is that?
Oh no,
We
we have
do.
chocolate Easter eggs.
Oh, you do? Okay. So that, because I've been hearing it was more of a bunny thing rather than the egg thing. So I mean, all of the kids are taught in schools what the symbolism around that is, and yeah. So I was kind
In
of
the
a little bit like,
schools. Yeah, I don't think
do
they
you
teach that in the
not?
schools.
Is that not a thing? So yeah, okay, that
Um,
makes sense to me now.
Interesting.
I
No.
would say in the schools they definitely do the egg thing, the bunny thing. They have art, projects. I'm talking about elementary school mainly. But yeah, it's very celebrated here, not Palm. I've never seen anything even spoken about, or nothing, like you said, there's no palms anywhere in the stores. Nothing said about it, really. Definitely Easter, but it's not always why we have Easter. It's more
Right.
like,
Yeah.
just the fun.
Yeah, but other churches do. In fact, yes, I have a friend that's doing a fellowship in Washington, D.C. right now, and she was at the National Cathedral yesterday. She's a former Mormon. She was there for Palm Sunday. So,
See, I'm next year
yeah, she was
when
definitely here
when
too.
conference and everything else doesn't fall on Palm Sunday, I want to go to another. There's a lot of churches
Yeah.
around us too. I want to go and see what they do for Palm Sunday, because really the whole leading up to the crucifixion, probably, I mean, I know that the actual crucifixion is the atonement and what the LDS Church relishes more than the actual Passover, the palm part where Jesus is going into Jerusalem. But really, isn't that that's such a more, I mean, the whole days of going into Jerusalem and eating the Last Supper and praying in the garden and all of that stuff leading up to the death. But there's a lot of stuff before the death. And by the way, we can historically record all of the Passover things. We can't record the resurrection because that's just faith-based. Nobody can prove that there was an atonement or a resurrection,
Actually, what you're saying, I think, is one of the takeaways that I had about how they were talking about Palm Sunday. There seemed to be not a huge amount of difference between how they would talk about Easter Sunday compared to Palm Sunday. What was the uniqueness about that? The fact that Palm Sunday wasn't so much about reflection, it was about celebration and action, and the temple was being cleansed. It's activism, but no, it seemed to be we have to talk about everything with reverence. We're not used to celebration. It's a weird one.
Well, it is. I mean, everybody says that. All of the holidays, Christmas, Easter, all of those things in the Mormon church is just so played down and so boring. And I have so many friends, even years ago, hundreds of years ago, I would have friends that would go to a different church because they would have they'd be bringing off camels and live stuff to celebrate. And they'd have dancing and all this celebration in this, this evangelical church down the street. My girlfriend was a dancer, so she was asked to come in and dance and be a part of it. And I was just like, and then we go there and they, sing a song, talk about the crucifixion, everybody goes home. In fact, that was one of the things that I loved about Elder Stevenson's talk was he said that there would only be an hour. And I thought, whoa, wow, now that's a revelation if I've ever heard one. Church is only going to be an hour on Easter Sunday.
So you can...
Thank heavens we have a prophet to tell us that, and then how we should learn. And then I love that he said that the best Easter story is in the Book of Mormon. And I thought, wow, we can't even give that to the New Testament. We're going to take that one back too. And I just thought, and the other thing I thought, and ladies, this is something that only a female podcaster would say, was Gary Stevenson, you are an extremely wealthy man. Get your freaking teeth fixed. I couldn't, he had this huge gap in his bottom teeth and I couldn't stop looking at it because I'm like, do you have spinach in your teeth or is there a huge gap? I'm going to give you the number for Invisalign. I think you could fix that, Gary Stevenson, CEO of Icon Health and Fitness or whatever.
Billionaire.
Yeah. And I just thought I couldn't stop looking at that, or as I would go through the conference talk, I'm like, that's a nice tie. I like how you tied that tie. That's a much better collar with the tie. That's
all the ties.
See,
a lot of them were Easter themed colors. And I was like, did they pass out ties? Were they like, you're wearing the blue one and you're wearing the pink one? And you're wearing
well, I wouldn't have noticed the teeth because all British people have bad teeth. That's just the thing. We're used to that.
So if it wasn't right in the front where I thought, is that spinach? Or do you have like a quarter-inch gap in between?
Well, I am delighted that you bring this up. You see, okay, you mentioned the Brit Vengers in your intro. Yeah. So as one of the team who is the Brit Vengers, I love them with all of my geeky heart, but as women, those moments that we had when Wonder Woman was released, and we got to see Themyscira, and we got to see this island and these empowered, strong women, and I am having one of the most sacred experiences of my life because I'm thinking, is this what it looked like? Is this what it was like before? Is this what it could look like? Yeah. Oh, I mean, that is empowering. So to come together as women to talk about, normally we hear how women are appearing be criticized, or how their voices sound be criticized. They are on the stand to be objectified. And so we saw that in Elder Gong's talk, which was one of my most infuriating moments.
No kidding.
Not just what he said. So he's giving this experience that he's heard. Please tell me it wasn't him. Who knows? Where a young man on a beach is commenting to a young woman that she is far too attractive. You're so attractive. Why are you wearing such a modest bathing suit? Now, all of the men in the Brit Vengers were outraged that this would never happen. This must be a fake story. The number of women who were sort of saying women would never stand for being spoken to like that. Oh my goodness, women have been spoken to that for our whole lives. That's just how people speak to women, and women tend to. Yeah. So I needed to have this moment with you guys to tell me I'm not losing my mind in this. That is a completely normal. Not normal, but it's a normalized thing to have happened, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, objectify, whatever. I'm looking at, Uchtdorf, and I'm like, I'm getting out my phone. I'm like, how old is Dieter Uchtdorf? I'm like, holy crap, he's 82 years old. My husband's watching it in the other room. I'm watching it in the bedroom. I'm like, do you know that man is 80? He is really good looking for an 82-year-old. I was totally objectifying him. I'm like, dang, man, talk about silver fox. It's like, woo, So I was totally I didn't think that about any of the other ones, but and move that kind of gives us on to okay, I could be wrong, but were there only 2 women? Was it just Sister Jameson and Sister Corden? Was that it? Women. 9 hours. There's no primary women there.
Last October,
really,
there was a woman speaker in 4 out of the 5, and the way they did it, like there was one Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, Sunday morning. So you had this pattern where I totally expected a woman to speak on Sunday afternoon last October.
Yeah,
and no. And I really felt, I wrote somebody this morning, I really felt like it was, don't you take anything for granted. We're still in charge. Don't you think that because you've had 4 so far, we're actually going to have 1 each session? No, 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 no. The Lord is in charge. And of course, the Lord in 2023, the Lord of the Bible in 2023 would make sure there are women speakers.
Yeah. Joanna, Susanna, Deborah, Mary. There would have been at least 4. Yeah.
So the 2, I just feel like they're playing games with us.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, just whet your appetite, see we're doing better, and then
Yeah.
pull the rug the next time.
And Bonnie is leaving, so they had to make her
They had to
talk.
give her- yeah.
So that was her exit talk, which I thought was, you know, I wrote down that she, first of all, I wrote down that she has 4 children and that she was a working mother. That was actually in her bio on the church website. She was a working mother. I thought, Ezra Taft Benson's rolling in his grave right there. First of all, you only have 4 children. And I think it said after her 3rd child, she quit working and then she went back to work after. And she, you guys, how did they phrase it? She balanced her priorities. That's how she was able to be a working mother. And I was like, well, that's not the message I got. There was no balancing, you know, that we were allowed to do.
No.
So isn't that funny how God changed that policy right there?
Balanced.
Yeah. But I did, in fairness, I did say I was very, very pleased to see that the large flower and the black burqa with the colorful jacket and the large flower, that has gone away now. And their outfit has been, you know, a little bit more modernized. They don't all look like they're coming from, you know, The Handmaid's Tale. So I was pleased with that. But I also was a little concerned that Bonnie Cordon, General Authority, or General Relief Society, working bachelor's degree, did not know what ALS was. So her father called and said, I have ALS, and she had to look up what that was. I'm like, really?
Mm-hmm.
I'm concerned about that. Although after listening to RFM and Bill Reel talk about the death of her grandson, I'm not really.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have been surprised that she didn't know what ALS was.
I think
Well, and
we,
then
I
there
think
was, oh, so go ahead, Jane.
I think the whole nuanced Mormon world was looking at her approaching the stand thinking, oh, what's gonna happen? Are we going like so and her story when she's talking about her dad calling, I'm thinking, oh, are we going to have another death? And what was heartbreaking to me about it is, so I couldn't concentrate on what she was saying because all of this was the baggage.
Yeah.
But the last thing, the abiding memory of her father is testify of Christ, not be a good person, not do good in the world, use every moment to talk about Jesus. That it kind of broke my heart a little bit. I mean, faith is important, and if that's how you live your life, but I don't know, my last words to my children being, make sure you talk about Jesus more. I don't think it's going to be that. It's going to be something to help them feel seen and empowered and know that they can make a difference in the world.
You mean like, I love you, and I want to be sure and say, I love you, Bonnie. I loved our experience of fishing together as your father. It was such a pleasure to have you. Nothing like that as his last words. It was all about Jesus.
Well, that's what she heard. Yeah.
If I can add, President Nelson's final words to his 2 daughters that he lost from cancer, Emily and Wendy, were, you have been faithful to your covenant.
Yes.
That's the most important thing.
It's
So
the covenant.
It's hard to see you go, but I know you're going, being faithful to your covenants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
It's not very personal, is it? It's all about the church. It's not personal to the person and what their experience is. Just like when the woman died and they went to the temple that day. It's like, how about talking about her? How about talking about her and how much we love her and what our experience was with our mom and our wife, and bringing your family in and chatting and crying together. Instead, they're going to the temple That's so weird.
Which is, see, I think that's such a fascinating story that could have been done very well. So I'm going to maybe say if this had been in the hands of a woman speechwriter, it could have been an empowering story, because she wanted them to go to the temple. Those were her wishes. That's a hell of an expectation for your children and your husband. You know they are going to be grieving, and they are going to be grieving hard. And if the lesson that those children are learning went along the lines of, they have learned that the temple is where heaven meets earth, where the veil is at its thinnest, and I'm going to feel closest to my mother if I go and spend time there, and they feel somehow more connected or supported in the process of their grieving. Instead, we have someone with ALS who's already, I mean, that was his death note, right? He has ALS. We've jumped to the happily ever after because it's all about Jesus. Now we've seen a grieving family who, not the story of someone who's so paralyzed with grief that they can't get out of bed for a year. We've rushed them through mourning because we need to get to that happy ending, because we can't feel uncomfortable. We have to have it's all going to be okay because the temple and Jesus. And do you know what? It is not okay. That is an unfair thing that has happened, and those children are going to be grieving. So I would like to hear about the enabling power of the atonement in a healthier way, because none of that is healthy.
I love that you brought that up. I love that you brought to the attention that that Mormons are not allowed to feel grief, that they must be happy, that they must be grateful for the atonement, and that they must be solaced in the idea that families will be together forever. Move on. See you next Sunday. And do you have that lesson prepared that you have to give in primary? Because all is well. All is well, and there isn't an unallowable grieving, and that's a really good point. That even her family was like, "Well, you should just be grateful. Look what she did. You guys were all together in the temple, so you'll be a family forever, together forever." And so move on. Let's move on. That's a. And Martine, did you must have experienced that? Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, Lila RFM and I were texting this morning. The reason she scheduled it. Okay, remind me. Was it the last week of 2022 that she scheduled it? Christmas and New Year's Day were on a Sunday. So the temple would have been closed on Saturday. So it's not like there was this, this inspiration to go on Thursday instead of Saturday.
So she said they normally go together on Saturday, but they went on Thursday.
For New Year's Eve.
Because it was closed anyway.
Was that? I didn't know if it was 2022 or if this was in the past. I didn't pick that up.
I think she said that in 2022 she was like in the fall, and it sounds like she passed away pretty quickly after the diagnosis. But I mean, you've lost a child. I bet everybody here has buried someone. I mean, as soon as somebody dies, there's so many things that have to be done. Going to the temple would be like. We went a week after our daughter died. We were here in Salt Lake, burying her next to her brother. So a week after she died. But that wasn't the first thing on my mind when we got to Salt Lake, for example. We have to go to the temple so we can feel like we're all together. It was like there's funeral home, there's obituary, there's a service, there's family
grieving too.
And there's
Right. And that, I have cognitive dissonance over all that, because I remember as a temple worker, I remember one day thinking, when my son was alive, I remember thinking we could all of my 5 children, we could all go to the temple and be together, except for they wouldn't allow him in because he's never been baptized. He doesn't have temple ordinances done because supposedly he's perfect. And so we would never be able to be together in the celestial as a family because he's disabled and perfect. So the only way we would be able, wouldn't that be a great conference talk? The only way that we would be able to be together is now that he's dead, you can all be together in the temple. And I'm like, how is that supposed to be compassionate or just so or listening to people say, oh, I tried to go to the temple, but they wouldn't let me go in my wheelchair because they were afraid the wheels were going to damage the carpet or something like that. There's just so many things that are just like, that doesn't make sense. But yeah.
Well, not only that, but and bringing up the lived experience of people who. So I haven't experienced that kind of grief. I don't have a family dynamic. At some point, I will in the future, but I don't know what that's like. Having a disabled son, there's a chronic sorrow is a thing that has been written about. So there's a type of that's not grief. There's a sorrow that is a lived with thing. So what I feel so excited by, and it's how did you live through that? How did you experience that? Where were the places where it broke you? How did you rebuild, and did you rebuild, and that's what I'm looking for from someone who, you do this for a full-time job, you're talking on this subject with the authority to do it, but you're not giving me anything that I can actually use as a tool that's going to help me get out of bed in the morning when it actually happens to me.
Yeah.
Whereas here are women who have had these experiences, and we can talk about the messy stuff, we can talk about the hard stuff, and not be afraid of it. It's uncomfortable, and that's the thing that we're not good at, is talking about the stuff that we're all going to go through, whether it's sin, whether it's the fallen world experience.
Yeah.
Give us something to work with. This is always my conference plea. Give me something I can use.
And I think Lila, that's what you were asking Martine, is when we listened, especially Sister Jameson's talk, which would, faith in Jesus Christ will heal everything. And I remember thinking, and I thought of you, Martine, as like exactly what you're saying, Jane. Give me something more specific that's going to get me through this day.
Yes.
You can't just say, I mean, I found just random, and I haven't seen it since, but randomly this thing popped up on TikTok where it was showing these disabled kids in the Philippines. And there was a picture of one of these beds, in the Philippines. There's this horribly disabled man. His 8-year-old child has got like a pulley rigged up over the bed that they're having to use to try to pulley this man, to lift him up and lift him over. This 8-year-old child is having to do this. And I just looked at that and I just thought, okay, that's great. I guess in the back of your mind, if you thought, oh, Jesus, I'm so glad that you died for my sins, and someday I'll be able to be with you. But in the meantime, what am I going to do to get through this day? Like Martine, I just remember you talking about, trying to bathe your daughter, and what is Jesus doing? And so what Jameson's answer to that was, he gives you the strength. You have the strength to get through the things. And I thought, well, those people in the Philippines don't believe in Jesus. That's not giving them the strength. It's just, there's something else. It's not faith in a zombie figure that we haven't even verified. It's just a belief that's going to get you through this stuff every day. When you're crying in the closet, Martine, Jane, when you have days that go without sleep, and somebody that you can't, have a verbal conversation with, tell me what you need so that I can do it. And you can't have that. How many days do you go through that and just go, well, Jesus died for our sins so that I'm good? No, you're crying, you're desperate, you're destitute, and that's why I get so tired of people like you were saying, Martine. Nelson goes into the hospital room of his dying daughters, and he didn't have to raise the kids. His wife did everything, and he just gives her what he knows, because that's his life. Look what Jesus, look at what your covenants, look what my priesthood has done for all of you. Bye. Got a meeting to go to. See you later.
I don't know if you got to see. I recommend everyone go check out Carol Lynn Pearson's Facebook page, because she wrote a post, I believe it was last year, but she shared it again for this Palm Sunday, and she gives an Easter story, and it's fairly short, and there is this moment where a woman is experiencing the Gethsemane moment and the breaking moment, and she's conversing with Jesus as this happens, so that by the time they get to resurrection, it's because a death has happened and everything has changed. Now, when I hear the talk that this is based on, that where we arrive is Jesus as the empowerer, the savior, the resurrection, the purpose. I have had experiences, really powerful ones, that I felt were life-saving at the time where I arrived in that place. And they are real and they are significant, but what I need is tell me about the death that happens, tell me about the torture, tell me about the pain, tell me about the betrayal, not as an academic exercise and this is what happened to Jesus. Tell me how that was feeling when he was on the floor, not knowing if he could go on, because I've been on the floor not knowing if I can go on. Can you come down and meet me in that space and talk about that? Because without that, I cannot meet you in the Jesus space.
Mm-hmm. And that's because you do get it from a male perspective, which is everything is fine. He got up, he brushed himself off, went and met his disciples and said, "We're good. Here we go." And because that's the male perspective, that's not the falling on the ground, tears, I can't do this anymore feeling. But yeah, that's amazing. Well, and that was my frustration with Sister Jameson. Also, the frustration part I had was that she's a lawyer. And I just thought to myself, do you use that baby voice in court? Because I have a hard time thinking that you're a lawyer. If you're going in and going, "My dear jurors, I'm just so happy to be here with you today. I love you so much, jurors." I just thought, I can't believe you're a lawyer with that voice. And her tears. Immediately there were tears.
Yeah.
5
I have
seconds
to
into
say
it.
something about this. I have to, because I know, Jane, I know that you hate that people do this, but this is something that has bothered me since I was little. Since I was little, the women that I admired did not talk like that. Nobody I knew talked like that, except the Relief Society president, maybe, or the primary. Like, it was like, this isn't real. Why are they doing this? Do they have to go to a special course? This is how you start a conference. Because it's not. It's just so, it's so mamby-pamby, sweet, dripping with syrup that I can't even listen to what they're saying.
Sister Kyoko did not talk like that.
No.
Yeah. It's the purpose of their message. I can't hear it. I cannot even begin to hear what they're saying because I turned it off already. When they came out with, "My dear brothers and sisters, I feel so off. I'm done. I can't hear the rest." Right? I want to hear, like you said, Jane, I want to hear somebody get down and dirty with me and say, "You know what? This sucks. And this was really hard." And there were times when I was cleaning up throw up every 10 minutes and I couldn't get through the first hour of the morning without having, difficult situations get thrown in my lap that I didn't know how I was going to handle them. This happened to me when my mother was dying. This happened to me when my father was dying. This happened to me when my husband was dying. I had to deal with cleaning up their poop. Every morning, my mother shit the bed, okay? And I had to clean up her sheets and wipe her down, get her in the shower if she would let me. And these were things that nobody ever told me that I might have to deal with in dealing with my aging parents or my husband who was dying of colon cancer. No one told me. And yet, and I will say this, my boys and his brother, one of his brothers, probably both of them, probably all three of them, had moments with him where they were serving like that. And I wish that we could hear those kinds of stories.
Right.
And also hear this. This is another thing that bothers me. So Bonnie Courtney's dad had ALS. I'm sure he had blessings, priesthood blessings out the yin yang. He probably had them from everybody that he could get blessings from. But we never talk about that. We never talk about, you know, all the blessings of healing that my husband, he was my ex by then, but
Yeah.
I was married to him for 33 years. Okay. All of the blessings he got were that he would be healed. There wasn't one that said, you know, God's will be done. It was all, you're going to be healed. You're going to live and remarry, and you're going to find your eternal companion, and you're going to go on and see your grandchildren get married. That's what they told him.
Yeah.
And none of that came to pass. And I remember thinking, what's the priesthood for? What? And all my kids fasting and all of us fasting. What's fasting for? Like, they don't tell these stories.
Yeah.
And if they do, it's put in some light that isn't real. It's like, we have to have the faith not to be healed, right? I'm sorry. That's a tough one.
Yeah. And I love that you brought that up, Lila, because like you say, the cleaning up, cleaning adult diapers and cleaning up throw up. And, Britt Hartley brought this to the attention. I remember when I first heard this when I was laying in the hospital with my son, and she said, spirituality is seen through the words of men who don't recognize when you stay up all night, when you're bathing babies whose skin is falling off, when you're cleaning up throw up. And Jane, you're dealing with diarrhea and poop and feeding making sure that there's enough food for people and all of this stuff. None of that is considered spirituality. And yet that is when you feel the closest if you have a belief in a God. The times that I bathed him, the times that I, bent his little arms because he was so bent, and lifted him up and bathed him. And I knew that inside that bent body that was nonverbal, I'm serving you. I'm showing you what love is. I know what love is because I cleaned this up. And that's the spirituality. And there isn't one religion, Buddhism, Hinduism, any of the Abrahamic Islam and Judaism, there isn't one of them that recognizes the female part of spirituality. We're all put down as that's just your job. But if you want to know real spirituality, let me enlighten you. And that's exactly, Jane, what you're talking about. And she brought that up, and it was the answer that I needed to hear, is the service that you do as women. When she talks about, Buddha or these men that go off to India and they take a retreat and they sit in lotus pose for 3 years and they learn how to meditate, and they come back and we all go, oh, teach me, spiritual leader. In the meantime, he left his wife and his child. He abandoned his family to do that. And I remember when I first heard that going, wait a minute, I don't know, besides Jesus, I don't know any of these men, Muhammad, that didn't abandon their families or they're even Joseph Smith. I'm completely going to abandon my responsibility as a breadwinner and provide for my family. I'm just going to leave all of you, and I'm going to go do my thing as prophet. By the way, build her a house. By the way, provide me with food. By the way, I'm going to need your money for transportation. And I see the same thing going on now. All of these, where is Sister Nelson? I said,
she's sitting over there in the dark shadows over there.
Like, Russell, give me one conference talk that is nothing but what your wife did for you. Tell me about her as a mother raising your 9 or 10 children. Tell me about her.
That one's on.
I would ask, because I'm always asking for a little bit more. There's always something I need that's a little bit extra than even if we got something that alluded to that. This is more enriching than the conference experience because it's real, because I know that you get what that is like. So we're unmasking, we're unlayering, once we're in that place we can then get real about it. So what about the times when I resent it? What about the times when I hate motherhood and I would be mentally healthy if I didn't have these children who need me? And yes, it's wonderful.
Yeah,
And
what about
can I resent being the caregiver? And can that be sacred? Can that be holy? Can that be part of the burden I bring to Christ? I love that you brought the expectations of child caregivers in, or young adult caregivers and young carers. I say so often that the church is Sparta. If you are not contributing, then you if you're not able to give more, then there is no place. We had our when our youngest child was little, and he would be woken up in the night because when his brother would wake up and feel confused and aggressive, and he would lash out, and so everyone's crying. And when my son is feeling worried or scared, he'll push or he'll lash out or he'll go to grab. So we have this little 4-year-old who the first thing he's learned in how to interact with his brother is to run. You have to run fast. We have to get you out of the way. We can calm him, and then your needs are going to be second. It's a horrible thing for a child to learn. And then you have to love him. And when you go to church, you're being taught, what more can you do in your family?
Yeah.
What more could you give? How could you help your mom and dad more? How else could you show love when they are giving everything? It is a terrible burden, and it's the same burden that we are carrying. What more can we do? What if could my holiness look like? Can I just be me? Can I not be the wife, the mother? Can I just be me and not have any of this? So while relief and care and humanitarian aid, oh my goodness, they are healing and they are wonderful and exciting, could I have a self again?
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
I saw some friends raving about Uchtdorf's talk, but that was something he said was enjoy. What did he say about raising your children? Do it, like, don't resent it.
Yeah.
I mean, that
That's
came
right.
out of Uchtdorf's mouth is, don't, I should find it on my iPad here. Don't resent it with joy. Well, sometimes it isn't joyful. A lot of times it isn't joyful.
That's right. That's exactly right. And sometimes it is like Martine, like you were saying as well. It's like, I tried so many times. I thought, okay, I remember one time I had my son in school, and I knew, okay, the school system in America, they can stay in the school system till he's 21. I thought, okay, he's 16. I've got 5 years. I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to get my degree, because he's in school from, 7:30 in the morning until 3:30. So I've got between 7:30 and 3:30. I can go back to school. Maybe I can get a part-time job, and then I can do this, because when he's 21, that's it. That's all I have, and I just had this panicky feeling. So it's like, yeah, I chose to have my children. I love being a mother, but there was a time in my life when I went, I want to do something else too. Sister Jameson, Miss Lawyer, 3 kids. I want to do something else too. We're not animals. We don't kick our kids out and go, great, you're now raised, bye-bye, see you later. I want to do something too. And that's okay as well. But we're not really taught that that's okay as well as women, only if you're a male. Which brings me a little bit to Brother Elder Bennett, Randall Bennett's talk. And I thought what was funny about that was that he talked about patriarchal blessings, and the men that I've listened to that have recapped his talk, I couldn't get past the trauma. When he talked about his parents arguing and threatening divorce his entire childhood, that's it. That's all I heard. All I had envisioned was a little boy in his bedroom listening to his parents fighting, and the constant fear that he had. And he told that story But then it was about how his patriarchal blessing comforted him. And I thought, no. We need to go back to your traumatic childhood and how that's affecting you as an adult and how his parents finally did get divorced. That's what that talk should have been about. And not some random, tarot card reading that we're going to call a patriarchal blessing.
Patriarchal blessing made it all better.
The what?
Patriarchal blessing made it all better.
Yes. Yeah. It solved all of the trauma that he has as a child. And my heart just broke for him as I stood there and I thought, you don't even know. You don't even understand what this trauma did to you. And I also wanted to know where his parents were at this time, where he's telling the entire world about his traumatic childhood. I'm like, ooh, mom doesn't like this talk,
Yeah.
But it was heartbreaking. And I haven't heard anybody talk about that. I mean, just the way he said it, I worried every day. Every day I wasn't sure whether my parents were going to be, what would I come home to? And I thought, this is a like 48 hours type story you got going on here. And then what happened after they got divorced? All he said was the patriarchal blessing. What happened after that? Obviously he's successful because he's a general authority, but they don't just, pick anybody. But yeah.
Good question.
Yeah.
Just, one thing I wanted to mention was Carl B. Cook. This is kind of along with what we were talking about a minute ago. He said, he quoted Joseph Smith saying, "Don't let discouragement overwhelm us.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going with faith no matter what." And that always, what that speaks to me is ignore your feelings. Don't listen to your brain. Don't critical think. Just keep going. Just don't look at anything. Just keep going in faith. Don't listen to your heart, your mind, your spirit crying out to you. There's something wrong.
Right.
It's a thought stopper.
Right.
Keep going in faith no matter what. What if there's abuse going on? What if there's something bad happening? What if your bishop is having an affair with your Relief Society president or is abusing a child or there's something wrong? You don't just keep going in faith. You have to take a stand. You have to do something and listen to what's happening. That just seems like no matter what is a little bit, that's scary to me.
That's a new version. That's 2023, stay in the boat.
Yeah. You're a robot. You don't need to think. You just stay on the covenant path. If I hear covenant path again, I'm so tired of hearing that phrase.
Yeah.
What does that mean exactly? Do everything we tell you. Go to the temple, take your covenants, and then stay on that path. Never deviate. Don't think, just do what we tell you.
Yeah.
That's really scary to me. That sounds like cult mind control to me.
I have two women friends that both went to their bishops for counsel because they had abusive husbands. And both, fortunately, after many bishops, the one friend was able to get a bishop that said, "Who told you you had to stay in this marriage?" But all of the bishops up until then told her she had to stay in this marriage.
Yeah.
And then my other friend, the bishop, this man was diagnosed with bipolar. He was, dangerous, and he was dangerous to their children because of the example that he was setting. And she was told, love him more. It will upset him if you leave him. You need to stay with him. And she finally had the intuitive to say, I can't do this anymore. Left him. Her children are doing better. She's remarried, has a wonderful new husband. And, and it's just amazing, the counsel and then the women who don't have the strength or the capability to use their own intuitiveness to go,
Well, they're the more righteous ones, though. They're more righteous because they listen to their leader.
Well, they've been disempowered by their the person who's exercising power over them, and then when they seek help from someone else who has power and authority, they're continuing to disempower them. So where
Right.
the hell do you find the strength? Who is going to be the person who saves you? And it is often maybe the family member who's not in the church, who has that step back, or someone in Relief Society who is particularly insightful and can recognize the signs. We are not trained in looking for the signs.
Right.
Just if it's okay, could I just quickly mention that we have been asking in 21st Century Saints, particularly if you're in the UK, but we are also interested in stories from around the world. But if you've lived and served in the UK, we're asking people to come forward with their experiences. We have been able to keep people safe today, and who are experiencing situations exactly like this. So we have launched an online survey as a way to make it easier for you to contact us and share your story in as much or little detail as possible, and you can be completely anonymous. So yeah, we have that at 21stcenturysaints.org. That issue about bringing abuse into it, I think, is where conference needed to talk about this year.
Well, it's from exactly what you said, Jane. If you have like those two talks, Lila's talking about if you're discouraged, if you're sad, if things aren't going your way, just stay in the boat. And then yours, where you're talking about is contention. You can see where if there is abuse in the family, then a woman is going to internalize that as, this is my fault. I'm being contentious. I'm letting Satan into my heart. I need to listen to my leaders, and I'm going to stay in this abusive situation because I can love this man through this, which is the whole setup for abuse, is thinking that you can change another person. But
well, the really scary thing for me, I think, and if it's okay, just because we're talking about this, as President Nelson is talking about the subject of contention, someone who is an abuser is, generally speaking, when it's insidious, they are the most holy, the most righteous. They know how the rest of the world just doesn't understand the gospel, and they know the language to be used, and they really believe that they are. It really interests me that the series that everyone's been watching right now, where in the end of the world apocalypse, when everything is going so traumatically, and zombies are chasing you and all of these terrible things happen, the worst thing that happens, the breaking point for a girl was abuse, was assault, and the abuser just, I am so good, why can't you see this? That is what the dynamic looks like. So when an abuser is hearing, don't be contentious, they are hearing something that's empowering to them. When someone is reporting abuse, they're being contentious. You're making me feel uncomfortable. And that unfortunately is the story of how abuse keeps being perceived throughout the church. Now, I think that President Nelson's talk did a lot to flip that, but wasn't enough. It has to spell it out in a much more exact way. Otherwise, people just don't see it. If you don't have the ability to be able to recognize what it looks like, what are the patterns, we also have this, it becomes more dangerous in the church because we have this impression that safeguarding or child protection or the protection of the vulnerable actually happens, because we have this training video,
right.
which does nothing, which if anything, it's a cartoon. And it's by its nature is lightening the subject. If you're alone in a car with someone, just be careful because of how it might look. That's what's being taught. It's the national charities here in the United Kingdom have told us that it is one of the worst examples of child protection training that they have ever seen. But because members think that this is what looks like good training, all of our members can do this, they feel safe. And when you feel safe,
Ah.
you're just not looking for what the signs are. So we are disempowering our members. We are disempowering the people who are, actually victims. The best thing that we can do is to start talking about it. The second we started talking about abuse, people started telling their story. Yeah.
Well, and then Martine, what was your impression of the contentious theme of the conference? Why did you, when you were watching it, why were you like, oh, I see why contention is the theme for this conference?
Nelson's, well, I made a post on the Mormon Stories Facebook group yesterday, because Nelson, several people are saying, and my own husband said it too, and maybe I even believe it, that it might be the best talk Nelson's ever given. If you look at it in a vacuum, yes. But if you look at what he said just 2 years ago, calling probably the four of us
Lazy learners.
disciples, and we can probably go back. I mean, you can look at what Ballard's called us, what Holland's has called us, not to mention the musket fire. Yeah, is it a turning page for President Nelson? I sort of doubt it.
Well, it was almost comical, because I thought, when did he turn into the happy little jolly, laughy, make a little joke guy? I mean, when they're showing the 1995 where he's insisting that we be called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, he wasn't happy. He wasn't like joking. He wasn't throwing, oh, I bet you don't think this is about you guys, right? And I just thought, who is this man? Is this because he's 98, or is this his acting of how not to show contention? And I thought the other thing, well, I think you need to talk to that COVID apostle about contention with this taffy pulling. I'm not going to stand for you people that, leave the church. There's a lot of contention in Holland's talks.
How dare you leave the church that I have given my life to?
Yeah.
I think, to me, a lot of the contentious talk has to do, it's very US centric, because COVID really divided us. Trump divided us, still divides us. When you're a member in the UK, when you're a member in Belgium, you don't know what the person next to you don't know what political party they are in, because there's so many. Well, in the UK, you're also it's pretty black and white too. But, if you look at other countries, politics doesn't enter church. So I think it probably left some members across the globe sort of scratching their head, which General Conference often does, I think. What are they talking about? We don't do that here.
Right. Outside of America.
Yeah. So to me, a lot of the contentious, the reducing contentions, because we know you have faithful members on the right who are upset with the brethren over what they feel are, the too soft LGBTQ policies, God forbid. Mormon Land had an episode. So the Tribs podcast, Mormon Land, had an episode in December with Paul Merrow and Stuart Reed. Stuart Reed is a former state senator, but he also worked in the early 2000s for the church newsroom for public affairs, and his assignment had to do with Prop 8 and all of that. And he is extremely conservative in that regard. And Paul Merrow was the head of the very conservative think tank here in Utah, Sutherland Institute. And Stuart and I listened to that podcast, that Mormon Land podcast, together in the car in December. And we kept hitting pause because we couldn't believe what these two men, who kept saying, I sustain President Nelson, I sustain the apostles, but I totally disagree with what they're doing right now with the LGBTQ community. This was at the Marriage Act, not the Defense for Marriage, the new law that was passed, you know, that they just are totally opposed to it and opposed to the church coming out and supporting it.
Yeah.
So, you
But
know,
the reason they came out and supported it is not because they're pro-LGBTQ.
No, it's
right.
not.
It was to protect them. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and I kept thinking, it was so funny because I was trying to find it. I couldn't find it, but there was an article. I follow the Salt Lake Tribune, and there was an article in the Tribune. And immediately afterwards, there was you didn't listen to our prophet. Our prophet said you shouldn't have contention. How dare you write this article? I thought, that was contentious of you to say that, you know, but the whole time I just kept thinking, wow, what a better way. And not only in the SEC financial situation did they say, and the matter is closed, you know, so they shut everybody up right there. But now the whole entire conference is on, we're not going to talk bad about people. We're not going to say anything bad at all about anybody. If anybody comes home from their mission, we're not going to say anything. If anybody gets divorced, if somebody's, like I said, if the Relief Society president's having an affair, if your Elders Quorum president sets up 13 shell companies, we're not going to talk about that because that would be contentious. I mean, the whole thing was just a ploy to get people not to talk about the shell company.
You know, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
That is the first moment. Oh, wow. Yes.
Yeah. RFM totally saw it that way.
Yeah, that's all I could think about was like, oh yeah, you know, we're just the audit, you know, we're just following what we've told everyone to stay out of debt, have put a little bit of money away. And I thought that is brilliant advice. I am going out today and asking all of my neighbors to donate 10% of their income. I'm going to set it up in a shell company in offshore, and that will be my backup fund. You know, for my retirement. I love that idea. Definitely from God. You know, I just thought, can we just address the issues and say, we talked about it. We thought it would probably be okay. We're sorry. I don't know.
Can you imagine if Russell Nelson, just go there for a second in your mind, got up in conference and his final words were, I want to take this opportunity to publicly apologize for what we did with our investments and our shell companies and hiding from, you know, the whole SEC debacle.
Yeah.
We should not have, you know, that was a mistake. And we make mistakes too. And we are sorry. And we are repenting. And that will not happen again. And please do not follow our example of what to do with your money because we did the wrong thing.
Yeah.
If he was
99% of the church membership has no idea this took place, and there's no reason
He wants to keep
lie
it
on it.
Seriously.
I know. And if they find out, don't be contentious and call us out on it.
Yeah.
Just
and I
keep
could
going
sustain
in
him
faith
again
no matter
if he
what.
did that.
Yeah.
That's someone that I could sustain. That is the church that I am looking for.
Exactly.
But when you talk about
so sad.
When you're talking about what were the reasons for the contention thing, another thing that I think we had been kind of braced for, and it's what I assume that you're really meaning when you talk about contention, was the Elder Corbid's little TNT moment. If your child struggles with a gospel principle or prophetic teaching, please resist any type of evil speaking or activism toward the church or its leaders. These approaches are beneath you and can be lethal to your child's faithfulness. He could have ended by saying, screw you, mama dragons. People have demonstrated again and again, if you ask us to choose between our child's pain and the church, they are going to choose their child. Now, not exclusively. Unfortunately, it is a huge problem. But when it comes to good parenting, you stand with your child, and to bring the church and your testimony or contention into it is unacceptable. we are placing ourselves above you people who do that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was one of those ping pong moments, right? Because Martine, didn't you quote, Elder Uchtdorf was like, was it he who said, we've heard that people have basically shunned their children or shunned members of their family. That breaks our hearts that you would do that. That was one comment. And then the next talk was, you're the parents, you're responsible for their behavior. If things aren't going well in your home, you might want to look at how you're parenting. And I remember going, okay, that was one of those ping pong moments where first it was like love. And then the next thing was like, you're not setting the example, so it was like, okay. But yeah. It's one of those things where you're like, I know you claim that you don't coordinate your talks. I know you claim that you don't know what the other person's speaking, but maybe we should get together. Maybe we should all get together and say, oh, I'm going to talk about how if your kids go astray, it's your fault. Oh, no, you can't say that because I was going to say that we have free agency. And, oh, okay, well, I'll have to change my talk. Maybe it'd be better instead of going, what? Yeah.
We had our youngest child, the kid who's now our youngest, came to live with us during COVID, and they're now a forever child. We get to keep them forever, and they came to live with us because it's like achievement unlocked. I got a bonus kid, so they came to live with us because they weren't safe in their home. They are a transgender kid, and they are perfect, and they come to church along with me. What we had to do whenever they first came to live with us is we had this moment of sitting down with the For Strength of Youth book. And I took them through the For Strength of Youth book to point out that here is what you may hear in church. This is not how we believe things in our family. You may hear these messages and they are harmful and they are not okay. We had to do that to make sure that they were safe at church, and that is not a sign of being unfaithful. That's how to strengthen someone's understanding of the church. That you please excuse my attention-seeking husky. Yeah. It's not about pitting me against leaders, against if you are sending messaging that is harmful, then I am going to stand with my child.
Yeah, isn't that, and like you said, in God's only true church on the earth, that's sad that you have to go through a screening process before everybody leaves and goes and sits in the chapel. Now, today you might hear this, and this. Ignore that. We don't believe that. See you next Sunday.
So, may I ask you, we can't hear you, Jane.
I'm sending my husky, hoping that somehow he'll become intelligent enough to be like, oh yeah, I'm really sorry.
He wants to participate.
It's more likely to happen than having my teens, say, oh yeah, I understand. I'll just go out. But he's headed off. Sorry about
he's
that.
our official priesthood holder that we have here with our meeting and our really exciting.
He has more authority in his little paw.
That's right. Yeah, but go ahead, Lila. You were going to ask.
Well, I don't mean to be contentious, okay? That's not my, obviously I don't, because of conference. But why, okay, now that you have a transgender in your home, what would be the benefit of taking them to a church that you have to do all these disclaimers for? What's going to be the good?
I probably would have taken them. This is what the context of my life looks like, and I have nuanced beliefs. So I'm going to church tomorrow. Do you want to come? And they have a lot of unmet needs. They want to be with me. So they come to church. So you're going to hear this, and here is how we're going to handle it if you hear it. You can stay with me. You don't have to go into these classes, and we will just continue to reinforce positive messaging when it comes up. And they have wanted to continue to be there. What happened that was super interesting is it turns out that there are, since they started attending, there are a couple of other transgender kids in this teeny ward. Like, so trans kids have now made up, what, 50% of the young women's program, I think, maybe at one point. So I think it did a lot. So I guess the part of me who's like, the church needs people like you, and you are so open and giving, and you all need to know that there are transgender people out there that you love, because at the moment it's all sort of theoretic, but most importantly for them, it's weird, but they've kind of chosen hanging around the edges of this space. I think if the missionaries showed any more interest in hanging out with them, oh yeah, I think they would be baptized in a heartbeat. But so I don't know how that would look. I don't know what barriers would then come up. But for the moment, yeah, I think it's probably been a story of feeling empowered to go into the world in spaces that are not looking like they're going to support you, and you're with someone where you're going to feel safe. And ultimately, you know that the teachings behind it are teachings that should help you to feel safe, that you are welcome, that you are loved, and that if you hear something that's, shows the opposite to that, it's not true. You can discard it. So I'm really sorry, Elder Corbett, but I am going to continue to reinforce those messages in our home.
Yeah, I think he that brought up the cafeteria Mormon. We don't get to selectively reject teachings. We have to drink the whole Kool-Aid, drink the whole bucket. Yeah. That was. I think that's so fun, because here's another ping pong situation. So he mentions selective rejection. That's not okay. But then brother, who was it? It was Haney. Brother Haney was like, those past prophets, they don't age well. They're not like a vintage car. You can just throw those comments away. We're not going to listen to those past guys anymore. We're only going to listen to the new prophet. But then you've got selective represent. I'm like, well, then aren't we selectively reflecting on the old prophet? And then like the next guy got up and quoted Spencer W. Kimball. And I'm like, isn't he a past prophet? Are we not supposed to quote from him? It was just like, oh, geez, people get your, let's get your. Yeah, it was. Yeah, definitely. Well, besides Schmutz or whatever his name was talking about engraving plates with a stylist, I thought that was hilarious. That was a good one. Brother Renland, his talk was just, he just has a tone. He just has a tone. Even if his words, if you read the words of his talk, you'd probably go, whatever, okay. But it's the tone that he delivers that you're just like, I don't like you. I don't like what you're spilling out here. It's just, it doesn't give you a warm fuzzy. He's not a warm fuzzy at all.
One thing he said, and I haven't had a chance to go back, but I did write it down at the time, is how important it is that we must clearly understand our covenants.
Yes. And representing the Lord's name in vain, right? Wasn't that his thing?
The thing is, even though the new version of the endowment lists the covenants up front, it doesn't explain them.
No.
Yeah.
You're not understanding the covenants you're about to make.
Yeah. And then the whole idea that those covenants that you're taking, that if you're not living them to the fullest, you mean like that one that says honest in all your dealings or that kind of thing, then how dare you even call yourself a follower of Christ if you're not living like Christ? And I'm just like, well, my husband, let me tell you the difference between those 15 men that were sustained and my husband. We walked into a music festival on Saturday night, and it was an open air festival, right? It was just at a park. And so we just walked down the hill and set up our chairs. And then when we were walking over to get at one of the food trucks, I noticed there was like a big sign that said entrance. And I said, were we supposed to come in through that way? Is there a fee to get in here? And he goes, oh, no. And I said, well, whatever. And he was like, no, I'm going to go over and ask, because if there's a fee, I'm going to pay it. That's an honest person that I would sustain. He doesn't have any shell companies. And so I just thought, not representing Jesus. Well, okay, Yeah, that was a toughie.
Yeah. There's a lot of hypocrisy in that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that was all that I had written down. Actually, the Saturday evening one was a killer. It was so boring. I couldn't even get through it. And actually Sunday afternoon, I think, I think my favorite talk was President Oaks's talk. And I told my husband, I said, honey, there you go. When you're asked to speak in sacrament next time, just open the Book of Mormon to Nephi or whatever, and just read the whole freaking chapter, say in the name of Jesus Christ, and you got a 10-minute talk right there. I was like, what's happening?
He didn't say anything horrible about anybody.
That's true.
That's a plus.
There you go. I had the thought that every time he opens his mouth, something toxic comes out, and that he's been told that.
That was his only way.
I can't say anything, so I'm just going to read scripture. Maybe I'll be okay.
Nobody can talk about me the day after in some kind of a weird podcast, right? They're not going to say anything about me.
Mind.
No, because
none of it came from him.
Just going to read. I'm going to read God's words that were written down. Somebody was taking notes. Those are actually God's words.
That was funny.
See, I felt like it was his speechwriter just really wanted to go home early one Friday, and that was how they dialed it in. We'll just cut and paste a bunch of stuff, send it, and that was. But now you come to mention it, it probably has been about, okay, if he can just have him quoting Jesus, he'll love it. He can't do too much harm there. What was hysterical, is this really bad that I find it funny? In these quotes, because of course, we have Jesus's official biographer, walking around with him, taking verbatim, he said this, so the Bible is very, very historical as we're sharing all of this stuff. The first thing that he shared was a quote from the temple video. It was, it's what Jesus, this is what is being said. This is this first commandment. And I'm like, that. It was how
as recorded in the scriptures, and I'm like, that was Doctrine and Covenants, which I don't think came from Jesus. So I don't remember him talking about that, and I don't remember any hand signals in the New Testament or even eternal marriage. I don't even remember that being talked about in the New Testament. So which scriptures exactly? So they can just throw out the word recorded in the scriptures, and everybody thinks it's in, 2 Thessalonians somewhere. And it's kind of like, I don't think it was. I don't know. But yeah.
I wonder. Scriptures. That's a problematic word for me.
Yeah.
Because all that comes to mind is man-made. And I don't trust that are man-made. I just don't.
Because the minute President Oaks is made prophet, that proclamation to the world family thing is going to be Doctrine and Covenants, section 1, whatever. It's going to be right down there with the polygamy manifesto. So it'll become scripture. He's just hanging on. That's what's keeping him alive. Yeah. So, well, ladies, this has been a kick in the pants, and I do believe it must be repeated, I must say, way before October. It must be repeated before October conference. And it was a little bit, and this is I will blame this on President Nelson. He started out his prophetic career by saying, you better watch out for conference. There's going to be something new. And so everybody's like, ooh, I don't believe anybody used to do that. We used to just go, oh, conference will be great. We're going to be inspired. We're going to be enlightened. But he set up the precedents for this new stuff's coming out. And so now we're doing predictions, right? Because that's what we think every conference is going to be, some new prediction. And this one was just a bunch of Jesus stuff, which I'm like, when did we start worshiping Jesus? I don't remember that in the Mormon church. I thought it was all Nephi and Joseph and and I thought, here's my revelation. I think that 25 years down the road, I won't be here to see it, but I'm to tell your children, Sister Steelman prophetically announced this. There will be no Joseph Smith. There will be no Book of Mormon. There will be no polygamy. We will be a good Protestant Methodist Jesus loving church, and all of that will be just kind of gaslighted away because was it last conference that President Nelson said the Book of Mormon is not historical? And this year they were freaking quoting it like it was the Declaration of Independence, and they're telling story, we all have trials, like Zoram had trials.
Yeah,
Like,
it went back to the old. Mm-hmm.
It's
all.
Which reminds me also in safeguarding, do not kidnap people.
Yeah. like Ishmael, Nephi, don't kidnap that poor guy.
I had
at the threat of his life.
Yeah.
Gary Stevenson, I wrote down, there was a graphic that they showed of, 3rd Nephi, because, this is where you find out about Jesus' resurrection. Best places in 3rd Nephi.
Yeah.
So the picture they showed is the one, in Mesoamerica with the Central America temples. And I thought, heartland theorists, you don't have a place in General Conference yet.
Yeah. Well, my first thought was, who else had trials? Cinderella. She had a tough life. And if we're going to tell stories of fake people that didn't really exist.
There's one.
Yeah. I mean, dang, that girl, she had birds making her clothes. I mean, that's tough. So anyway, but I'm sorry, I'm so cynical, but it's you got to get through life with a little laughter, right? Well, any of you have any closing thoughts that you would like to share with us as we close?
I thought it was funny that Nelson actually in his list of people not to listen to, he said there's venomous contention, polarization. He mentioned influencers.
I know.
Oh yeah.
And then if you listen to but I really love, I was listening to, I believe it was Mormon Land. You mentioned it, Martine. I was listening to Mormon Land where they interviewed the 2 missionaries that came home early from their missions. And the one missionary, his entire mission was they had to do so many hours of Facebook. And they would contact people through social media, and then they would make up little skits. And this one guy was like, he had the most hits of all the missionaries on Facebook or whatever. And I thought, okay, are we on social media or are we not on social media? Let's make up our minds.
Well, it can only be on Facebook, but the grandson of one of our very best friends here, I think he's been home 2 years now, but he's very talented, just a very talented musician. And he served a stateside mission, but his assignment with another missionary was to create high quality content. And I mean, really high quality. The church bought a bunch of tech equipment so they could produce professional looking videos and all of that on his mission. And they were doing really well, but it was all to reach out to people over social media. And unfortunately, at some point, they were doing so well that church headquarters said, oh, we can do that. So they took it away from him and his companion.
That's what they always do.
But yeah, it was his calling, and he did amazing videos. He's an amazing pianist. I don't want to say too much, but
yeah.
He was over on the West Coast, and I mean the sets, the grand piano on the coast with money was no object.
Right. And do you remember the old days on the church website where they had what was it called, where you could look up, members in your ward and all that kind of stuff. And then they decided that they were going to pull it back and take it away from the people that were doing it because they weren't LDS. So they took it back and now it's a mess. That happens all the time. I forget what it was called. So Jane, just in closing, when President Nelson was reading off the new temples that were going to be built, were you like, Scotland, just give us one. And no, we're going to put,
Well,
what's your closest temple?
It is Preston, England. So it is another country, and it is 4 hours away.
Okay.
So yeah, quite a while.
Now,
I am.
city.
In Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Why can't
Exactly.
you? They
It might
big.
genuinely would probably be cheaper for me to fly to Hamburg, and I would be there faster than yeah.
Mhm.
So I am in the central sort of belt of Scotland, and if you're any further up than this, I mean the sort of furthest Latter-day Saints up there, we're talking about like an 8-hour trip. People from Ireland are having to ferry over, and it's, you know, overnight trips. So yeah, I mean, I used to joke that, you know, your ancestors are just gonna go full on poltergeist if you don't hurry up, because you, especially because you love to, you know, the leaders during conference just love to bring up their ancestry.
Oh, yeah.
And
Mhm.
you don't get to do that and then forget, you know, that there are needs that are not being met. But I kind of think at this point I've given up. I think they're toying with me. I think it's personal now, that they're just like, okay, how close could we get to Jane just to, you know, just to
We
make
were
sure
going to
we're-
put a temple in Edinburgh, but that Jane Christi, absolutely not. That's not happening. Yeah.
That is exactly what I think. So
Yeah.
we've been told that we are going to get one in the very near future, so that it will be within, we have just the best state president within his term, within his leadership. So it wouldn't be
Okay.
too long, but
Maybe October.
we'll see. It could be. It could. Everyone is literally sitting with bated breath, with, you know, these moments, and we have been for many, many years. I handed back my tempo recommend in protest a while back, so it will be bittersweet when it happened.
Yeah.
When it happens, but it's no. I am a no. I'm trying to be gracious. No, I'm furious.
Try not to be. Well, especially when the other guy, I forget who the other guy was, that said 85% of the members of the church came from the United Kingdom back in 1860 something. I forget who it was that gave the statistics, and I thought 85% came from. Yes.
Yeah.
And
She's mission in the UK, you know.
There you go.
Forget it.
So you've got 85% heritage from that part of the country, and you have no temple, but we are going to put one in San Jose, California, because we just don't have enough in California. And heaven forbid, you know, that you have to drive 15 minutes.
So they announced a second temple in Virginia. The Richmond temple is having open house right now. So that temple, you know, will be dedicated the next few weeks. This temple is in Virginia, is in like a northwest corner of Virginia. I talked to somebody who lives there last night. It is 80 miles from the Washington, D.C. temple.
Oh my gosh.
The membership is not that huge, but what I was thinking yesterday is, it's been bothering me anyway. It bothers everybody how many temples, you know, they're building, because each time you build one, you reduce the pool of members who can work in that temple.
That's right. Yeah.
So, you know, you're looking at Salt Lake Valley and 4 or 5 temples, whatever we have now. You have thousands of members you can call on to be temple workers, to go clean the temple. But when you have those small temple districts and you keep making them smaller because you keep building more temples, those people still have callings. They still have families. They still have jobs. They still have to drive to church most of the time, long distances.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you've added now, you know, another guilt trip because, but we gave you a temple and it's not being used. Baton Rouge. So we lived in Baton Rouge for 18 years, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We have a bunch of friends who are temple workers there. And I know one of my very good friends has told me that they were constantly told this temple is the least used of all the temples, maybe all of the 2,000 temples or something like that generation. But she said we were constantly guilted that, you know, it was underused.
Yeah. I wonder if that's why they're asking the older people to do 2 missions now, because they're building temples and they can't get people to serve. So that would be part of it. Interesting. Oh, so anyway. Well,
Can I
you guys.
make last
Yes,
thing?
yes, please.
And I want to ask all of you this question because this has been bothering me and I'm hoping that you can answer it for me. Okay. We get these guys speaking in conference and they're talking about Lamanites and they're talking about Nephi and they're talking about, things that right in the gospel topics essays have been pretty much, explained. There is no DNA over here from Israel or Jerusalem. So the Lehi migration is not true. I mean, we have no foundation for that. They know about, they talk about Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon as if it is historical. It's as if we've gone back 20, 30 years and we're talking like we used to talk at General Conference.
Yeah,
Do they not know? Have they not read their own gospel topics essays? Or we don't know. And so
maybe we could send it to them.
So we're going to talk about the old stuff that we used to talk about. Like all of this stuff has been explained, even though very whitewashed in the topics essays. So why are they acting like none of that exists? I don't get it.
Yeah.
Do they not know? I don't understand.
I think it's the deep down they don't really believe it. I do. I think it's
they don't believe what the doctrine or the gospel topics essay where they're
the gospel topics essay. I think it's that's the academic stuff, but we can choose to have faith in whatever the hell we like, can't we? I don't. I think Nelson has been on record as talking about he's sort of anti-evolution, and you're a man of science. You've experienced those classes, right? So how you can reject something that, and I think probably something similar happens with the gospel topics essays. This is the gospel topics essays would then become, oh, this is for the people. If it would cause you to lose your testimony in the Book of Mormon, here's something that you could hold on to. You don't have to believe in it this way. So I think that's possibly them nuancing it, maybe.
Okay.
Lila,
they're acting as if they've never. Yeah.
Was it mostly some of the 70s? Because you mentioned that in the text yesterday while you were watching.
No, I didn't pay attention to whether it was an apostle or not. Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's still true that some of the 70s just don't bother.
They don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's right there on the
Yeah, it's right there.
I'm so confused by this.
Yeah.
It's like they're ignoring that it even exists. And maybe, Jane, it's because those are for the people who doubt.
Yeah.
Gospel topics essays are for the doubters. We're going to keep with this, fake religion. We're going to just keep spouting that fake religion for all the people who don't know about any of the problems. We're just going to keep going with that as long as we can until they all say, we've read we know. I don't know. To me, it's
faith.
Weird.
These magical stories build faith.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. We are the crazy conspiracy theorists who think that the Book of Mormon didn't really happen. and
there you go.
And this is something that I don't know.
Santa Claus. We all know. I know we still tell stories about Santa Claus, but we also all know that Santa Claus isn't real, right? And so it's kind of
wait, I don't believe Brother Haney knows that, because when he was 7 years old, he got a testimony that David O. McKay was the prophet, and he knew he was the prophet. And then he went and visited Santa at the mall, and he knew that he was also the guy that brought your gifts. So at 7 years old, so maybe we may not know that. I don't know. But
right.
Yeah.
Some of us still believe. I don't know. I just find it very interesting that they've got a foot in both camps.
You have to. They have to, because like I said, if they're going to not be Protestant, if this is not a Protestant or a Methodist religion, it is hanging on the Book of Mormon. You have to have the Book of Mormon. And they cannot let that go, or the entire church
It all falls
falls
down.
down. So they can't let it.
We already know that the Book of Mormon is not literal.
Yeah.
They've already said that the Lamanites, are among, like they've dialed it way down. They don't talk about the Lamanite generation has been disbanded. They don't talk about that anymore because we don't know who they are or where they are, if they even exist. So it's just strange to me that they continue to talk about Lehi and Nephi and all of the old prophets and every, Zoram.
Like they're real.
All that, they're real.
Mm-hmm.
Strange to me. But
I know.
Jane, I don't know what where your beliefs are, because I know you're still active. How do you feel? And we don't have to talk. This could be another podcast, okay? But how do you feel about the Book of Mormon? No judgment here. I'm just curious where you're at.
Oh, you see, I love this because no one ever asks me or sort of drills down into anything. People are just always just so.
I'm a total drill. I will drill.
Oh no. I love it. It's crazy. It's messed up, and I feel like there's a lot of value in it, but I have and I know I'm sounding like I'm being really sarcastic, but I genuinely mean I have as many sacred experiences with the sacred text of Wonder Woman as I do with the Book of Mormon. The Pearl of Great Price, I adore it because I think there's so much great content in it. But as for hanging my whole no, not literal, no geography, but I see valuable things in it. I also see extremely harmful things in it too. So
like racism.
Which you could say about the Bible too. Like I heard someone say, because there's such an uproar about the banning of books, and someone was trying to ban the Bible because it has incest and murder and so much violence and that kind of stuff. So you can say,
which I find more valuable in the Book of Mormon, though, because I think there's a lot more richness, and I think if we placed more value on the Bible as Latter-day Saints, then we may be able to live with nuance. If we could accept messy prophets who do things wrong and repent, and God is working with them, that's where I see the beauty. And the fact that my relationship with the Book of Mormon is a messy one is probably quite reflective of where all of my faith is, if that makes sense. I love living in the question and the I could sit in the fence and in this messiness forever, except apparently increasingly I am having to sort of make decisions more than I ever have had to before,
right?
Which I don't
like not sustaining. Not
sustaining. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, it's been an interesting weekend. The weather was gorgeous here in Arizona, and fortunately, we have these amazing little tools that I could listen to conference while hiking and doing other things. And I love, but I said to my husband, I said, here's the problem I have. He went over and helped a family move on Saturday morning, and I was watching conference, which I thought, that's ironic. I'm not a member and you are. So, but I thought, I look at the Muslims and how they or Islams and how they celebrate like Ramadan and is that the Muslim or is that I can't remember anyway. And how, you've got these football players, kids that are fasting, even though they're doing daily doubles in football because that's their religion. And yet here is the most sacred weekend in the Mormon church. And he's helping a family move instead of watching conference. And, we're going out for dinner instead of watching afternoon conference because we can record it. We can record it and watch it whenever we want to. Wouldn't you think if we honestly thought that we were going to listen to God speak through his prophets, that would become a priority and that there would be no watching it, recording it. There would be no, I have to hear it in real life, because what if the prophet has something to say at 1:00 on Saturday afternoon that's going to affect the rest of my life? But we don't. We just brush it off as, I have soccer practice to go. I'm going to go shopping. I'm going to, celebration with families and things like that, because I can record it and watch it all next week if I have to. That's how seriously we take our religion. And I just think that's so ironic. But regardless, I'm glad that we were able to do that so that I was able to do whatever I wanted to on Saturday and Sunday. But anyway, so, well, ladies, once again, look, we almost did it. We almost did a John DeLynn. We definitely did a Bill Reel and RFM. We're 2 hours in. We are good. We are good, guys. We got it. People are saying there's not enough female voices. Right here. We can do 4 hours too.
René, I'm going to send you an article from the Church News from 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
It is worth a podcast.
I would love that. That's great. I don't think we get the church news. Why doesn't my TBM husband get the church news? Oh, well.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you.
Send the article.
We'll do it.
It's a total 180 from what we were taught.
Yes, I love it. Yes, everything is a 180. I love that too, because I thought, speaking of the strengthening the youth thing, my husband said to me, because when my brother was here visiting, and my brother and I went and got a new tattoo, and he said to me, when did you start wanting to get a tattoo? And I said, actually, I wanted to get one in the 80s when they first kind of started getting popular, but I didn't know what I wanted. I just couldn't decide what I wanted. And then darn Hinckley threw a wrench in that plan, came out and said, absolutely not, no tattoos.
It made it worse. Oh,
Dang
no,
it.
there was the earrings.
Yeah. And I just thought, if I could have just gotten it last year, then there's been nothing you could do about it. So then, when we moved to Arizona and I was no longer, a grandma in view, I was out of sight grandma. I didn't have to set the example anymore. So I got my first tattoo. And you know what they say about tattoos, they're very addictive. And you get your first one and you always go, that's it. I just needed this little, stamp here on my wrist and I'm good with that. And then you're like, maybe I could put something, so they are slightly addictive, but anyway, so it's just my poor husband. In fact, I told him, he got a little frightened. I said, I think I'm going to go to church with you next week. He goes, why? And I said, because it's Easter. And I just thought I'd go. And I said, and besides, I like to go to church every once in a while with you just to go. He's still married, ladies. He's still, and we're not doing polygamy. So back off. But if anyone wants to bring a casserole or a cake, I am good with that. So I just
love it.
So, yes. So, it sounds like Martine has a plan for us. We might be getting together again soon. So let's let that plan play out.
I have loved this. Thank you so much. This has been such a fun conversation.
It really has. And I love the power. I just love the power. And I think we might all be having to get some gold wristbands, right, Jane? Or at least a red and blue costume.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm glad we didn't try to go talk by talk, because that would have been too difficult. But themes is a good way to approach it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Jane, you go get ready for bed, and Lila and Martine and I are going to get ready for the rest of the day. So thank you so much for joining, and we will be back.
Okay.
I will promise you all that. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Oh my gosh, is that not amazing? And I love what Jane was saying, how it was so important to hear a female voice and a female feeling for how we accepted and heard conference. It was absolutely beautiful. Can I remind all of you to like and subscribe to She Became Visible? And please, if you wish, would you donate to the Mormon Discussions? You can do that on mormondiscussions.org. And if you type in She Became Visible, shebecamevisible.org, you will go right to my Facebook page. And there is a place there where you can donate. And Bill Reel is he is our supervisor of this beautiful umbrella that he has created. And the amount of work that he has to put into definitely needs to be acknowledged. And this is what your donations do. And I'm so proud to be a part of Mormon Discussions and to be under Bill Reel's umbrella. So if you feel entitled and would love to, donate to a podcast and you see valuable information coming, I really encourage you to do that. So have a great day. It sounds as if the four of us will be getting together again. I'm anxious to read the article that Martine is going to send. So thank you so much for joining me on She Became Visible. stand up, show the world who you are, become visible, and tell your story. Have a great day. Bye-bye.